Good evening. Welcome to ORP TV. I'm Craig Stagner. This is the JK Auto Repair Studio. JK Auto Repair is, of course, a full-service car care provider in Ozark, Missouri, 2103 Selmore Road. Let Zach know that you heard about him here on ORP TV. This is the All Parts Auto Salvage Weekend Report. All Parts Auto Salvage with two locations in Springfield to take care of you. 2600 North Benton is the salvage yard. 425 East Kearney is the parts store, and they are a location to rent all kinds of U-Haul to take good care of you. Well, this is the first show of 2021. We talked about that we were going to do the year in review. There's going to be some things we miss, I'll be honest. Otherwise, if we hit every single thing that came up this year, good, bad, and otherwise, this show would be forever long. So we're going to hit some of the points that I thought were interesting. No offense if we missed something, but if we missed something that you think should have been added, comment it here and let us know so that everybody knows. Maybe it's something that we flat out missed this year. Well, believe it or not, back in January of 2020, things anything looked possible. And we started off the year with a story about South Georgia Motorsports Park. They were going to put in a half-mile drag strip. This is for some of the guys who, more street cars that are high-end geared, hoped that they could race more than just a quarter mile. They were looking at putting in a half-mile track, and there you see some of the guys from there. The only little issue that they came up with was that the track was going to have a slight left to it. Other than that, I don't know how the progress has gone on that, but that was where we started the year. I thought it was interesting way back a year ago that we actually look forward to that. Come January 12th, in Saudi Arabia, the 2020 Dakar Rally, Paulo Goncalves, 30 years of age, died on the track in a tragic accident. This is a off-road rally style racing. Now, some of these you may not have even known about, but I think they were worth noting. Goncalves was a great racer, only 30 years of age. Tragically, he died on January 12th. Now, January 19th, the 34th annual Lucas Oil Chili Bowl in Tulsa. Remember how excited we were for old Kyle Larson here? He won his first ever Golden Driller Trophy, edged out Chris Bell. Looked like this was going to be a great year for Kyle Larson. Well, he appears a few times in this, I can tell you that. But that was how we started the year. Kyle Larson started the year certainly on a positive note. Then January 30th, one of the all-time greats, the families. If you're of any kind of age, if you're 40 years of age or up, you probably referred to anybody that was driving fast as Mario Andretti. Hence Mario Kart. I mean, the Andretti family was legendary with racing. Well, at 56 years of age, John Andretti passed away from colon cancer. Tragic. He had raced all kinds of racing, NASCAR, open wheel, a lot of things here. One of the really saddest, most interesting tributes to Andretti was that at his funeral, he got to take the last lap at Indy. They've had his name up on the board. The last lap for John Andretti, January 30th of this year. For us, February 8th was our personal first big moment of the year. The first annual Missouri Motocross Hall of Fame inductions. We had that as part of an arena cross in Springfield. The inaugural class, Mel Gear, Jim Moon, Larry Perkins, Greg Ponder, Jerry Sharp, Jolene Schnick, and Tom Worthy. Absolutely an amazing event, and got to reconnect with some great people like Peggy Moon and Ellie Sharp and Mark Sharp. Just great people, and see Mel and Carol Gear again, Doug Gear. Fantastic. Got to reconnect with my buddies Greg Ponder and Chad Brixey. Fantastic. That was a lot of fun. That was in February. February 17th. Now, whether or not, whatever your political affiliation or ideology is, it's pretty tough to say that it wasn't real cool to see Air Force One landing. Look at that. Remember when we used to have fans in the stands? Air Force One landing at the Daytona 500. President Trump, first president I've ever seen do this, come out. He was the Grand Marshal, told them to fire their engines. And just to be even cooler, took a hot lap in the presidential limo. I don't know if they'd had, well, I won't even say it if they'd had the election that day. This was as cool as it got. Absolutely just a real goosebumps moment there to see the President of the United States, whoever the president is, taking a hot lap at Daytona 500 in the limousine. Now that race that day was won by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin took the win. Big moment for him. You may have forgotten that near the end of that event, this happened. This was Ryan Newman being struck by another car here. You'll remember there was some real talk in the hours following that Ryan Newman may not have made it out of this crash. Remember, they put up the big barriers so that you couldn't see all the things that were going on. And we really weren't sure if Ryan Newman had survived this. Well, that son of a gun is tougher than boot leather, I tell you. And 48 hours later, he walks out in just his socks. He walks out with his two kids. It took him a little while to get back to racing, but Ryan Newman is one tough son of a gun, and he made it through that wreck. Somewhere in there, March happened. Actually, I got that a little bit out of order. You may remember a little something called COVID hit the news. Well, March Madness was canceled, and you'll remember those couple days there, March 12th, 13th, something like that. Things started happening. First thing, NHRA postpones part of the Gator Nationals. Then NASCAR postpones Atlanta, says we're going to put the whole season on pause. One of the first big tracks, now this track is one of the big ones, they kind of, there's plenty of big tracks, but certainly Lucas sets the tone. They postponed their season opener. It got real bad. That's when things started to change there. Then a fellow named Kyle Larson hit the news again. Remember, iRacing started up in the first part of, that would have been the first part of April, late March, 1st of April. Kyle Larson regrettably says something to a teammate. He loses everything. So he went from winning this event that he had always dreamed of, Tulsa, the Chili Nationals, to that. We'll talk more about Kyle Larson coming up. Another one of the sad moments that we had this year, April 16th. You know this fella, you know Brian Shaggy Lewis. Well, his mom, Lola, this pretty young lady, she doesn't look 75 there, does she? Well, unfortunately, she passed. I know that was tough for Brian and his son Richard. So Lola Lewis, rest in peace. She passed away April 16th. April 24th. This is where I started figuring out that some of you all weren't on board with me yet on the electric stuff when we talked about the new electric Mustang. It ended up looking a little bit different than this, but this Mustang Cobra Jet 1400 running a quarter mile in the low eights at 170 miles per hour. I still think some of you guys are going to come around on these electric vehicles. So that was not that long ago. Then, with all the tracks starting to cancel, not being able to race, Ozark Raceway Park, Centerville, all the tracks were unable to do anything. Clarksville, Tennessee, Clarksville Speedway had a real unique idea. They were not going to open up drag racing. They were just going to run a concession stand. They just so happened you were going to place your food order for your burger, your fries, your drink up at the, they'll have a little green light there for you when your food's ready to go down and be paid for. You'd run that 8th mile down there, and then at the end, they would give you your receipt for your food. They just also mentioned how fast you went. I don't know how well that went over with the officials there, but support your local restaurant at Clarksville Speedway. A real clever way of trying to get around that and having some racing in Clarksville. Then, in April 27th, this gentleman right here, I had a jersey just like that. I loved that jersey. I was a big Honda fan. Three-time national motocross champion Marty Smith and his wife Nancy died in a UTV accident together in the Imperial Sand Dunes down south by the California-Mexico border. So one of those people that we sadly lost this year, way too young, was Marty Smith. April 28th, Willard, Missouri's Caden Cornell does big on CBS. Remember, they were showing iRacing. That's how hard up we were for racing there at one time. We actually had video games on TV. Well, it was a good chance for some of the guys to actually show what they could do. And one of those fellas was Caden Cornell, who won, I believe that was Eldora that he won on the World of Outlaws Eldora iRacing on CBS. So that was a big moment for Caden. March 3rd, a big moment for us. This was huge. This is one of those goals that I had set for us. We've surpassed it, but May 3rd, ORP TV goes over 10,000 likes. That was huge. We had a contest, a giveaway. We actually gave away the trip to PRI, and then PRI was canceled. So we ended up cashing that prize out to the winner. Adam, it was Phillips. I believe it was Adam Phillips. We ended up cashing that out to him. But either way, it was a big deal for us to go over 10,000 likes. Now we're up over 11,000, almost 11,400. So really excited about that, and you all are to thank. May 10th, Walton Tidwell, a young man out of Willard, Missouri, was a dirt track racer. Tragically was killed in a motorcycle accident. One of the, I just saw today, this is one of the highest numbers of motorcycle fatalities we've had this year. Early on, Walton Tidwell, just 30 years of age, way too soon, passed in that accident. Good news for Lebanon I-44 Speedway came on May 12th. Because of the COVID restrictions, Nashville race was canceled. Now, you know Nashville is back in the news because they are pushing to have NASCAR racing again at Nashville. Well, back in May, they moved that race to Lebanon I-44 Speedway. That race was going to be held on September 5th. So from May to September, there was a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement for all of us that ARCA, with some of the big stars that were in the ARCA series, were going to be coming to Lebanon I-44. May 24th, kart racing, another one of those accidents where we lost someone. Brian Campbell, who was just 42 years of age, passed away at Jasper Speedway in Jasper, Alabama. This is when we first really got to talking to Chip Abramovitz down at Twister Alley Raceway about karting safety. This track was a 70 mile per hour plus asphalt track, a little different situation there, but one of those racers that we lost this year. We certainly hate that we lost, but we'd hate to not mention it also. This is probably the dumbest firing of the year. I would have to put that on the at the top of dumb things to get fired for. Daniel Abbott, I believe it's ABT, drove for Team Audi. He was a Formula One style driver, open wheel. Not real good at video games, so he hired someone else to drive for him during iRacing. Well, Team Audi fired him, so he literally lost his racing job for cheating on video games. Who knew a cheat code would cost you that much money, but it certainly did. June 16th, NASCAR announced the Hall of Fame inductees. This was part of the class here of guys. We all know this fella should have made it. He didn't. The three that were selected were Mike Stefanik, Red Farmer, who wasn't on here, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. So congratulations to them. A few days later, June 20th, Ron Minix won the Midwest Pro Mod Series at Worldwide Tech Raceway in St. Louis. This was a big event. I believe this is like a $10,000 payout. Ron Minix took the win there. That was a big win for them. The next day, June 21st, oh, there's a look at that big old, $10,000. That looks good. AMA Supercross finals wrapped up June 21st. part of the 250 class, Richards, Missouri, which is close to Nevada. So he's a big popular racer around here. Austin Forkner had a chance to win the 250 championship, wrecked. This injury, he ultimately lost his spleen and a third of his pancreas. So this was a serious injury. Needless to say, he did not win that day. Eli Tomac took his first 450 Supercross championship of his career. Then 250 rider Chase Sexton took the East, and Dylan Ferrandis took the West. Interestingly, both of those have moved up and will be in the 450 this next year. Austin Forkner should have a pretty good chance at winning that 250. You may remember NASCAR did a little something that didn't go over too good. Remember this look? NASCAR said no more. No more on the Confederate flags. Well, that's where it started to get real funky around NASCAR. Not too much longer, we had New Skate at Talladega. This was the rope pull in question. We could argue all day about whether or not that looks like a noose. Either way, it was handled the way it was handled. That was June 22nd. Well, it seems like a lot longer ago than 6 months ago, doesn't it? NASCAR ended up putting out a statement about that. The FBI got involved, and it was real ugly. July 5th, a good friend of the guys at Twister Alley Raceway, Ron McKelvey, 73 years of age, passed away. Seemed to be a beloved figure there. So Ron McKelvey, one of those guys we lost too soon. First of a few mentions this young man's going to have. Said that Austin Forkner was a stud rider from around here. Well, let me tell you, if you got anything you can get autographed, you want to get pictures with, Gavin McCoy. Out of Clever, Missouri. He took the number one at the Loretta Lynn's Regional E-Mini Junior 4-6 electric bikes. Loretta Lynn's, for those of you who don't watch motocross, Loretta Lynn's is just about the Olympics of motocross and supercross. He is going to be a star. Excuse me. July 11th. The 2 Extreme Monster Truck Show at Bolivar Speedway. This was really a big deal. This is a picture I got of them, the big trucks there. It was a huge event. Just an enormous crowd there. Historic Bolivar Speedway did a great job. Those of you who were there might remember it was warm. Mary and I were there to see this. I can't thank her enough, and I want to brag on her. Mary jumped in and helped out with concessions and water and sales. Unbelievable. We hear that it was a great event. We didn't see any of it. I was going to the store for water. Mary was doing first aid and sales. So I'm going to pat her on the back and congratulate her for stepping up and helping out. I hear this was a really cool event. Langley Speedway. This was July 11th. That same day, Sean Beluzzo, 64 years of age, was the winningest driver ever at Langley. He was an 11-time modified champion, had won, I think it was 16 out of 17 races the year before. So this wasn't a guy past his prime. Just 64 years of age. He had just turned 64 5 days previous. Passed away in a wreck on track. There's in addition to Street Outlaws and the show The Memphis Street Outlaws, the fastest in America was being taped on July 18th. Birdman James Finney and this car down here that belonged to Megatron Stan Allen, both were injured during the filming. Fortunately, both of them were okay. Just destroyed both cars, but a freak accident of a day that you'd have 2 of the stars both have big wrecks. July 25th, Maurice Petty, who is 81 years of age. He was the older brother. I think he's the older brother of Richard Petty. They're right at the same age. Maurice Petty was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 2011 and the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2014. He was an engine builder and a crew chief. Here's a look at him back when they were younger. definitely what Richard could drive, and Maurice was probably hitting up the girls because he was definitely the better looking of the two. But Maurice Petty, 81 years of age, a legend, passed away in July. August 4th, Gavin McCoy goes to Loretta Lynn Nationals, takes 5th at that. This wasn't just a regional, this was the Nationals. So he was racing against the top riders in the nation. Big moment there for the McCoys out of Clever, Missouri. This one here is going to show how old some of us are if you remember him. Do you remember this? Do you remember the good-looking red tuxedo with the blue? That was stuntman Gary Wells. Most famous for what he didn't do, and that was successfully jump Caesar's Palace. See how he's kind of crossed up there? Yeah, that's not what they wanted. Back before the days now where they have the ramps that are 20 feet wide that make sense, they would try to land on a ramp that was about as narrow as the one they took off on. Got a little crossed up. Instead of going through the tunnel, he hits it at 90 miles per hour, breaks everything, and almost died. But he was still jumping buses a couple of years ago, 6 years ago, when he was 57. All this to tell you that August 6th, stuntman Gary Wells passed away in a nursing home, they said of natural causes, at 63. I'd say that fella got about 3 times the amount of years out of that body that he should have for 63. So stuntman Gary Wells passed away in August. Big news for Lucas Oil Speedway, and also they signed a 3-year deal, going to bring Summit USRA Nationals to the track. This is going to be a big event for 21, 22, and 23 at Lucas Oil. Now, August 10th, this cool looking car here, who wouldn't like to drive that? That is awesome. That car belonged to crewman Dom Lagana, and in that car was Richie Crampton and Jake Sanders. They were leaving the Lucas drag strip. Somewhere on the trip home, speed was obviously a factor, none of them wearing seatbelts. Dom Lagana was almost killed in this accident, severely injured. Richie Crampton was thrown from the vehicle, had a broken hip. I think Jake Sanders had on a seatbelt and he was treated and released. Dom Lagana was in the hospital from August 10th to November 22nd. You'll see him. This is his beautiful wife. Looks a lot like Lizzie Musey. Good looking picture of him. Well, I don't know if you can see it here. Dom is okay, considering that he lost both legs. A terrible, terrible incident. Reminder, buckle up, drive smart. Even somebody who's a NHRA racer can have an accident on the highway and nearly get killed. August 16th, Ozarks International Raceway was introduced on Facebook. Those of you who are fans of ORP TV knew about this a long time ago. Those of you who aren't and only watch KLOLR and some of the other channels just found out about this. Was really surprised to know about this, but we told you all about it. 4-mile racetrack going to be opening up this summer. Ought to be really cool. They're hoping to attract NASCAR and IndyCar and all kinds of open wheel racing there. That ought to be a lot of fun. Also, a big day at Spokes BMX, had the Pro-Am. Local BMX pro, Austin McCann, took the win there. I think it was a $1,500 victory. That was a big moment at Spokes BMX to have their first Pro-Am. One of my buddies, CJ Kilkenny, he used to be about this tall a couple of years ago, and now he's this tall. CJ Kilkenny took the Midwest Junior Series at Terre Haute, Indiana on August 30th. Now that event that we talked about, the ARCA race at Lebanon I-44, that came to fruition. You see here, this is, I believe that's Brett Holmes maybe there, and then Haley Deegan. Those weren't the cars they raced there, but you'll see a look here at the pits. This was really cool. It ended up being quite a few people there by nightfall. That was early on during the day. You'll remember Haley Deegan led her first ever career ARCA laps there, led 85 laps. Crowd went nuts when she took the lead. It was like when Dale Earnhardt Jr. would take the lead. Huge fan favorite there. But in the end, Sam Mayer takes the win. Sam Mayer, Brett Holmes, some of the guys like that are going on and racing on up in the series. So if you were there, you saw quite a few future NASCAR stars. September 20th, a buddy, Josh Arl, out of Marshfield, avoided serious injury in a drag race with Missouri Farm Truck Steve Jodicke. The Nemesis, this car had been previously owned by J.J. DeBoss. This will be the precursor to some J.J. DeBoss news here later on. Car was wrecked, but not destroyed, and fortunately Josh Arl walked away. This one comes first. September 21st, NHRA. This was where kind of the momentum that all these big businesses had was coasting towards the end here, kind of petering out after a bad year of sales and everything. Coca-Cola decided all of a sudden they were done with NHRA, not going to sponsor it anymore. They pulled Mellow Yellow. NHRA sued them, and it took about that long for Camping World, who apparently is doing very well through all of this, jumped in and took over as the new sponsor of NHRA, so Camping World stepped up big. Also at the same time, Michael Jordan and Danny Hamlin announced the addition of 2311 Racing. That's the car that Bubba Wallace is going to be driving, and I'd say it won't be long you'll see Denny Hamlin driving a car just about like that as teammates. So that was not that long ago. Big news for women in racing. September 25th, Gracie Trotter out of Lowesville, North Carolina, became the first woman to ever win an ARCA-related race. She took the win at the Las Vegas Bullring Speedway. Here's a look at her, young lady. She also won the Wendell Scott Trailblazer Award this past year. Really great to see one of the girls take a win. Really cool. Had some seconds. I know Haley Deegan had a couple seconds, some wins previous, but this is the highest win for a female ever with an ARCA-related race. Hillbilly Speedway had their first demolition derby on September 27th. You get a look there at some of the cars. When I tell you this was a crowd, you cannot imagine how full this place was. Everybody was, they were being careful. We were all, sanitizing our hands and being careful. But there was about 1,000 people. By this point in the year, people were ready to get out and see some racing. Hillbilly Speedway's first demolition derby was huge, and there's going to be another one coming up this year. September 30th, NASCAR announced Bristol on Dirt. In 2021, some people have kind of scoffed at this. I think it's going to be a big deal. In addition to this, the weeks ahead, there's going to be a dirt series of amateur racers. I've seen some other racers from here posting that they had got the invitation. So coming up in March, this is going to be really big. NASCAR's trying hard. Boy, they're pulling out all the tricks to try to get everybody interested again in NASCAR with Bristol on Dirt. First time since 1970. October 6th. Believe it or not, this was kind of a big deal because we knew that Jimmy Johnson was retiring and it was going to be who's taking the 48 car. Well, Alex Bowman was tagged to take that. A couple days later, Clint Boyer from Imperial, Kansas, I think it is, announced his retirement with career 10 wins, 226 top 10s, and his season best second place in 2012. October 4th, J.J. D'Amato. This guy is 48 years of age. He was the vice president of marketing at Joe Gibbs Racing. He passed away October 4th. The reason I mention this is what has not been said. There has been zero indication at what happened, just what a tragic loss it was. Still no indication what happened there, but a sad deal because he left behind a wife and 2 kids. Then, October 13th, the 34th annual Ozarks Area Racers Foundation Class of 21 was announced. Your legends Bob Maggard, David Bates, Clint Henry, Ben Newell, pioneers Bart Bates, Ronnie Arbuckle, Dean Hoover, and Bruce and Debbie Handley. October 13th, Tim Slavens, who drives the Wolverine, took the Pro 275 World Championship in the Sweet 16 at the South Georgia Motorsports Park. I don't think it was a half mile, by the way, going back to calling back our first story, the half mile track. This is on the quarter mile. You can get a look there at Tim Slavens. He's squatted down here. He's not, this isn't like a Dorf situation where he's only that tall. You can see he's down on one knee in front of the car. Zimmerman owned car. That is a beautiful car. It's a big deal for Tim Wolverine Slavens. Our third mention here of Gavin McCoy, Ponca City in October. He took first at the E-Mini Junior 4-6 class at Ponca City. I believe he took first in the motocross and supercross divisions. Big deal. And one of our girls that we sponsor, Kinsey Bricado, finished second in the girls 11-16. What a sweetheart Kinsey is, and a hell of a rider. So congratulations to both of them this year. Centerville, the Street Legal Championships, the Outlaw class. I'm kind of giggling because I can't even imagine you. That's a real stretch to call this. That is real outlaw to say Street Legal. The Pro Mod of Alton Holstead and Dwayne Graham, Team DNA. They took the win there. You see him celebrating with it's probably like some apple juice or something like that in a can. Our sponsors from All Parts Auto Salvage. It took till October 19th for us to get the news that we knew would be coming because he was winning everything all over the place. All the dirt tracks. He's still running and winning. Kyle Larson was reinstated October 19th. Ultimately, about a week later, he was tagged to going to be driving the number 5 in the 2021 season. October 20th, the 7th Annual Southwest Missouri Drag Racers Hall of Fame Class of 2020 was announced. Kurt Cosson, David Slee, Sonny West, Bill Ridenauer, Ted Jones, Ron Hendry, John Ditto, Mike Reynolds, and Matt Sampetro, who sat right here and did an interview with us a couple weeks ago. You get a look at those fellas and ladies. Great to see them. That's a big honor for all of them. NHRA Finals was November 1st. Steve Torrance took his third Top Fuel Dragster Championship in a row. Matt Hagan with his third Career Funny Car Championship. Erica Enders with her fourth Pro Stock Championship, and Matt Smith with his fourth Motorcycle Championship over a long time, too. Matt Smith's a legend. November 8th, the second annual Missouri Motocross Hall of Fame class was announced. Corey Bradley, a freestyle legend, one of the godfathers of freestyle flatland in the Springfield area. Chad Brixey, motocross legend, one of my heroes growing up, Joe Burke. And another guy, the only guy who would be a bigger hero for a longer time was crazy Jody Hale. Jody Hale's announced. Don and Melba Herndon, Ray Schnick, and Brian Strain all make up your second annual Missouri Motocross Hall of Fame class. November 9th, Chase Elliott won the NASCAR Championship, his first ever. And you may or may not remember, he failed pre-race inspections twice. He had to start from the very last. He went from 42nd to first and won that first ever championship. I think he's going to be real good for a real long time. November 13th, big news for Lebanon Midway when Clint and Tina Gann announced the purchase of the track. Track personnel for a long time. You see him celebrating there. That lucky fella getting him a big old smooch from Tina. They're going to take over Lebanon Midway. Come November 14th, Lucas Oil announced that they were discontinuing the off-road series. This is where this was a big day for some cancellations. I did just see earlier that that series has been replaced. Just as a side note, I believe it's the Kansas City Off-Road Racing Association. So there will be off-road racing there this year. It just will not be Lucas Oil sponsored or backed. Also at the same time, Joe Gibbs Racing ended their motocross team, and Harley Davidson discontinued factory-based race teams. Randolph County Raceway, right before Thanksgiving, announced that they had new promoters, Jim and Tammy Lawrence. I see them with all their family there, so that ought to be good news for the Lawrence family as well as Randolph County Raceway. November 24th, Hendricks Racing had a crew member, William Rowdy Harrell, and his new wife, Blakey. 3 days after their wedding in Florida, tragically were killed in a car wreck. They believe speed may have been a factor there, maybe alcohol also. Unfortunately, well-liked young man. 3 days after their wedding, still on their honeymoon, they were killed November 24th in Florida. You may remember the Turkey Bowl, November 28th at Springfield Raceway. This was a big one with Ryan Gilmore taking the win here over Chris Jackson. That would be one of the biggest stories maybe of the year here with the local racing. I would say, if I was putting it on the spot right now, I'd say this Turkey Bowl 14 was the biggest event news story, at least on our page, for the entire season 2020. Historic Bolivar Speedway went into business with the Missouri Stock Car Racing Association. Those will be the new promoters for racing. That was announced in November. This man right here, I already told you he was going to be in the second annual Missouri Motocross Hall of Fame class, Brian Strain. Well, he went to the USA BMX Grands in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and took a championship. I believe he's number 2 in the nation in the, I think, over 60 cruiser class. Absolutely outstanding. Another racer from Spokes BMX, Carl Mitchell, also took a class win there. A weird week or two that we had. November 30th, James Goad, the Reaper, had a trailer fire and lost both of these cars. You may remember that. The first part of December, Monette Motor Speedway went up for sale for $1.22 million. That's still on the market. If you have that, if you were just $600 shy of making that and you got your incentive check, you could be the owner of Monette Motor Speedway. It's still for sale. December 5th, Lebanon Midway Speedway lost a staff member, Frank Bosley. He was just 52 years of age. On December 8th, so just 8 or 9 days after the Reaper lost his cars in a fire, J.J. DeBoss also was in Oklahoma, lost 2 vehicles in a trailer fire. December 9th, ORP TV, for the first time we had our drive for Toys for Tots. Really a big moment for us, and we thanked all of our sponsors and all of the people who helped support it. We were able to donate $505 to the Toys for Tots in conjunction with our dear friend Rochelle Summers, who's been a icon in the Toys for Tots fundraising for 25 years, along with Jay Michaels. So it was really important to us and meant a lot to be able to help contribute for the kids to have a good Christmas. December 14th, Historic Bolivar Speedway lost staff member Skip Brooks. He was 71 years of age. You'll remember he was a photographer, was sick. I believe he had a stroke. He was wheelchair bound, said, I know what else I can do. I can sit in the middle and be a track official. He came on, was a track official to the very good old Skip Brooks. He gave him hell right to the very end, 71 years of age. It was after being vehemently saying they would not go to transponders when we spoke to him about the Turkey Bowl, December 19th, Springfield Raceway announced that they would, in fact, have Westhold transponders in 2021 to alleviate any problems at all. Transponders are going to be big this coming year. Historic Bolivar Speedway, Hillbilly Speedway also will be running the Westhold transponders, but big news for Springfield Raceway to be running the same transponder system as some of the other tracks. There's a look at those transponders. If Monette was a little bit too expensive for you and you got the money, $230,000. Nevada was announced for sale December 26th. If you didn't get what you wanted for Christmas, the day after Christmas, Nevada announced that they are for sale, $230. You could pick up that track and have your very own races there. So, coming up next week, we will be talking about the season coming up, the 2021 season preview. We've been talking to the tracks. We've got a lot of great information. I hope that we hit some of the things, maybe some of the things that we talked about here today. You'll say, man, I forgot about that. I can't believe that was this year. But if there's something that we missed, I know that there were some things. There was a huge event at Twister Alley Raceway, the Boogeyman this year. There was a lot of great racing, a lot of good news to be had. It wasn't all bad when you look back on it. There certainly was some bad, but there was a lot of good. So we're just going to put 2020 behind us. Think about the good, forget the bad, and go into this year with our chin up and headstrong, and we're going to have a hell of a year. I thank you so very much for being our friends, our fans. If you send a message, I try to answer each and every person. We have new shirts coming. We're going to have new sponsors, and this is going to be our year. We are going to be big. We're going to be bad. We may have already been bad, but we are going to be bigger and better in 2021 than ever before. And we're going to do it with your support. And thank you. It means a lot to us. So that'll do it. We'll be back here Wednesday for ORP TV from the JK Auto Repair Studio with the All Parts Auto Salvage Midweek Report. And we'll be talking about the Hoosier Arena Cross that went in this weekend, as well as some of the other races that are coming up. Polk County RC Raceway had racing this week. We'll be giving you those results and talking about that coming up on Wednesday. So until then, thank you so very much. That was 2020. Now we forge ahead to 2021. For ORP TV, on behalf of Mary Stagner and I, we thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week.